Today, we're going to talk about the differences between concrete and pavers. And I came up with a very useful acronym for us because sometimes it gets confusing when we're talking about the 6 differences between concrete and pavers. So our acronym is CMUS. So there you go. I really like pavers. As you can see, even though I'm a paver salesman and I might be excited about pavers, there are some pros to concrete. And I have my friend Adam Browning with Commercial Concrete. We're going to talk about concrete versus pavers and dig a little bit into it to see what the differences are and see which one will win. Thanks for being on here, Adam.
No problem, Mike. I appreciate it.
I think the first thing that everybody thinks when they think concrete versus pavers is price, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. There's a cheaper option.
Yeah.
With $8 to $10 per square foot.
Versus 25 to 35 for pavers.
Yep. Yeah. So unless you get into stamped, then stamped, you're probably talking upper teens to low 20s, depending on how much you want to do and color and variations and stuff.
Yeah, because it seems like if you had like a 100 square foot job, a paver job is probably a better option because now you're not calling out a whole concrete truck and trying to get it out there. But as you start to get a bigger job, concrete quickly starts to become more competitive, right? Because if you were doing
our minimum is $2,800.
$2,800. Okay,
yep.
So you can build a 100 square foot space for $2,800.
Yes.
All right. So our minimum is 120 square feet, which comes out to $4,200.
That would also be on just broom finish standard.
Right.
So
concrete. You're not getting anything nice. So
yes.
for a stamped,
you're going to be stamped. You're going to probably be closer to like 5,500 actually.
Okay.
5,
so now the pavers are winning. So brushed, pavers, stamped. Okay. So now we're kind of seeing that price breakdown. Now let's jump to like a 500 square foot job, which seems to be like the average backyard patio.
Once you go to 500 square feet, you're going to be in the high teen range, even with stamped.
So we've got a calculator here. So 500 square feet for pavers, we're going to be at 15,000.
So we're at 11 for stamped. You'd be about 7,000 for just regular brush.
So now we're really seeing as the job grows, now we're really starting to see the difference between them.
Yep.
So now let's go even bigger. So you're just doing a broom finish, a cantilevered coping, 1,500 square feet of concrete. And you're saying it's going to be about 12,000?
12,000.
And that's all?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
As long as you can get good access. And then if you were to go stamped, you're at probably low 20s, 22, 23,000, something like that.
I mean, I can tell you right now, not including coping, pavers at that point are going to be about 45,000. So now we're really starting to, and that's not including coping. Average coping around a pool is another $5,000. So now we have $50,000 for pavers and coping.
Stamp would be low 20s, so like 22,000, 23,000.
Okay, so now we're at half the cost for stamped concrete. Yep. And then we're even below that. We're not even at 15 for coping and brushed concrete.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's a pretty big price difference right there. So moving on to point number 2, which is cracking. So we always joke in the paver world when people are asking us like, hey, concrete versus pavers. And our joke is, there's only 2 types of concrete. There's concrete that has cracked and there's concrete that will crack. So we talked about an advantage for concrete. One of the advantages to pavers is that if there's tree roots and stuff like that, like a lot of times you're pulling out concrete because tree roots have popped it and then you have to re-pour that whole slab. A lot of times we can just take our pavers up and then inside of a couple hours, we can adjust those roots, get the pavers repositioned and back in place, and you never even knew that we were there, even though the tree roots have popped it up.
If we have to cut a section of concrete out, even if it's 6-7 months, the color difference will definitely show.
It's gray versus white and stuff like that. Another thing I think about when I think cracks and I think about concrete is I think about the joints on pavers and I think about weeds getting in the joints. That's a very common question that we get is like, hey, I see, Sue Jones' patio over there and she's got weeds growing all through it. And, I'm going to have weeds growing in my patio. And the short answer is yes, you will. Like there's almost no way to avoid it unless you're keeping up with the maintenance on your pavers. And so that's making sure that you have the good polymeric sand and stuff like that. That's an advantage, a pro for concrete is that concrete, unless it's cracking or settled, you probably aren't going to have weeds.
I think crackweed can grow anywhere, but you're definitely going to have a lot more joints and places for it. Yeah, you're going to have a lot less area for it to do that.
Yeah.
I do agree with whatever you're doing, especially if it's decorative. You should do preventative maintenance, after some time. Make sure that you're keeping up with it before it gets away. And I think that goes either way. But obviously, yes, there's a lot more areas for crackweed to grow.
One thing as far as stamped concrete versus pavers is stamped concrete takes maintenance, right?
Yes. Typically, we'll do 2 coats of sealer when we first do the project. And even though the manufacturer says that you'll get 3 to 5 years, you don't. It's like putting paint on fresh sheetrock. It just soaks it up. So after about a year, you're going to want to get it cleaned and reseal it. And the reason being is if you don't, eventually it will not keep the color. Okay, so the more
sun will start to
sealer,
bleach it out.
the more sealer you keep on it, the more vibrant the colors will stay.
Right.
And you're looking, depending on square footage, if you were talking 1,500 square feet, you're probably talking about $2 a square foot. And then after you seal it, after about a year, then you'll start getting your 2 to 3 year mark. And then once you seal it again at 3 years, then you're going to start getting your 3 to 5 year gap, depending on traffic.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's kind of where a lot of times a paver will start to win that cost per square foot over the lifetime of it, because you don't have to seal a paver. You can just leave it unsealed. You have your joints to worry about that, you know, between the 5 and 7 year mark, you're going to need to redo those, the polymeric sand in those joints. Weather probably plays a pretty big factor with you guys on concrete, right?
During the winter, you're going to want a ground temperature of 40 and rising, and not below freezing for a significant amount of time.
Right.
Otherwise, you're not going to be able to pour. If it freezes before initial set, which is 500 psi, you can get spalling, where the concrete just does not cure it.
I've seen that. It's like little fissures in the surface of the concrete, right? Like,
yep.
Just like a tunnel of like little fractures.
So if you get too hot and you're pouring, you can get to where the top will start crusting before the bottom sets, even with additives. You can get what's called crazing. Okay. And it's like a bunch of spider cracks. It's unsightly, but it's not structural.
Yeah, and so for pavers, one of the nice things is we're using a method called open grade. Essentially, us using clean aggregates that don't have any fines in them. They don't hold moisture. We're able to put down fabric, lay our aggregates on top of that, lay the pavers on top of that, and then put the polymeric sand on it. We don't really care about the weather as long as we can actually work. You know, if it's driving rain, we can't work. If we're making mud piles, we can't work. If we're having clear snow or the ground's frozen, we obviously can't work. But other than that, we don't have too many constraints. Let's talk a little bit about warranty.
We do workmanship warranty, guaranteeing that we're putting in what we're saying we're going to. So if we say we give you 4 inches and something were to happen and we have to excavate it and relook at it, if I've given you what I said I am, then I'm in spec. We also follow all ACI guidelines. So for workmanship and all the rules, it's pretty much based, even from government standards, it's all based off of ACI, which is American Concrete Institute. So if something does arise or happen, that's what we revert back to. On
our stuff, I know nowadays, like pavers, I mean, they're pretty much giving lifetime warranty, like Tecoblock, Belgard, Unilock, they're all giving a lifetime warranty on their product, but that's because they're making it in a controlled environment. It's still concrete. They're just making it in a controlled environment, know how it's going to turn out, and they're able to control it all. And then obviously we're able to offer a 2-year workmanship. And really the only thing that we're offering a workmanship warranty on is whether it settles prematurely or not. Like there's not much else, other things that you have to warranty on. When you're preparing a site, you're talking about like a pitch and grade. Pavers, you can get away with probably 1/2 inch per 10 feet. As like, that would be, you know, you're barely rolling stuff. Ideally, you're getting like 1 inch per 10 feet. What kind of pitch do you need on concrete?
We're gonna go with 2%, which is 1/4 inch per foot. So on 10 feet, you're talking 2 to 2.5 inches is what we would like to see.
So you're trying to get some good movement away. You don't want that water sitting right there.
Because again, we're not in a controlled environment. So when you're hand finishing concrete, it's very easy to get what's considered, it's called a concrete bird bath is what it is. It might not be but an 1/8 inch thick, but it looks like a puddle.
I know exactly what
but
you're
when you're
about.
Scrading wet material, it is impossible to make it completely flat.
Last thing I want to touch on is speed. So pavers take a little bit more time because we're laying them individually. We're creating our base, which we typically want 5 to 6 inches of base here in Virginia. We are then going to have to pack them, put polymeric sand or a resin-based sand in the joints to keep the weeds and allow moisture migration back and forth between the base and the surface. So we're taking a little bit more time. So 100 square foot job, 1 day, in and out, we're done. A 500 square foot job, usually 2 days because of the complexity of it and moving the dirt around. 2 days, sometimes maybe into a morning if there's some interesting inlays. But then when you move to a 1,500 square foot job, now we're there for at least 5 days, usually 7 days. All right, break it down for us, Adam. 100, 500, 1,500, how much time are you spending?
100 and 500 is going to be the same, basically a day or less.
Right, because you're prepping,
100 square
forming.
foot, we're talking a half a day. 500 square foot, 6 hours to 8 hours.
Right, and so this includes you forming, getting your base right, and pouring the concrete?
Yeah, and clean up.
Okay, now that's for brushed. What about for stamped?
Stamped, every job that you're going to do is going to be 4 or 5 days. It's just each day that you come back, you might only be there for an hour.
Right.
So, but you're still going to have 4 to 5 days.
And you just have to kind of schedule it out. That makes sense.
Yes.
Okay. Now 1,500.
So 1,500 square feet. If it's brushed, you're talking 1 to 2 days, and then a cleanup.
Okay.
Actually, you probably get your cleanup on the second day if we pour in the morning.
So you're moving quick.
Quick, yeah.
And so you're in and out way before me.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, but if you go stamped, you're going to have 2 days of actual big construction, and then you're going to go into your 3 to 4 days of cleaning, sealing, coming back to seal. So then, like I said, but you still might only be there an hour or two each follow-up day.
That makes sense.
So you're still going to, stamped-wise, you'd be 5 days.
Okay. Item number 1, cracking. Does pavers or concrete get it?
I would say pavers are going to win the cracking thing, as long as there's a proper base.
Right, as long as there's proper base. All right, so cracking, pavers. So 1 for pavers. All right, cost.
Concrete all day.
I agree.
That's much cheaper.
Ding. Maintenance.
Maintenance on just traditional, regular, brushed pavers, I think concrete wins. It's going to have a lot less joints for crack weed and stuff like that, where pavers are going to have to be resanded,
right,
and then have to keep them sprayed after a few years.
Yep. But then stamped versus pavers.
I think it's probably close.
I think that's a draw. I think that's
so.
Honestly, I think that
because you said 4 to 5 years you're going to have to resand, right?
Yeah,
And
I
what's
would
the
say
cost of that on 1,500 square feet?
it's usually like the same as stealing it, like $2 a square foot. So
Yeah,
it ends
so-
up being
yeah.
about the same. So you might pay a little bit more on the front end, but get it on the back end. So this one's a little bit of a toss-up. So weather, I think pavers win that because I can put pavers down almost any time of
Yeah.
year. So
Weather's definitely going to be more of an issue with concrete,
Yeah, check on my
regardless of
side.
what kind of concrete
Yeah.
you're doing.
Warranty, I would say that concrete probably is going to win that from a installation process. If you know what you're doing, there's not really any need for a
Yeah,
warranty.
if it's built properly, you're going to get a good 30 plus years out of it, typically.
Yeah,
Um,
and built properly. We
yeah.
talk about that, but yeah. Okay, and then warranty on pavers. While the pavers themselves usually have a lifetime warranty, it's usually up to the installer, and I see a lot of people install them incorrectly, wrong all the time, and they end up looking like you know it. So I think concrete wins that one. Hey, keep it down. And then the last part of this acronym, the CMUS, is speed. And concrete obviously wins the speed as well. I hope this was helpful for you guys to see the differences between concrete. It's very useful to have an acronym so you know what's better. But if you're in coastal Virginia and you need pavers, we would love to help you out. If you're in coastal Virginia and you need concrete, my good friend here, Adam, would love to help you out. Adam, tell us how we can contact you.
You can contact us by Googling commercial concrete or commercialconcreteva.com.
And you guys are in Yorktown, right?
Yorktown.
As always, we appreciate you guys following along. We are just wanting to get people outside. We're wanting to educate you guys. We want you guys to know the differences so that you can make educated decisions. Even if you're not hiring us, we want you guys to know what the pros and cons of all outdoor things are. Thanks for following along. As always, get outside, my friends.